'Cause fishing, it's in my soul.
Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
Hello and welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast. My name is Rich Natoli. I am the host of this show today. And this is going to be a really cool one. We have with us today Captain Brad Smith from Gunny B Outdoors, fishing down in North Carolina. Captain Brad, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. We've had a lot of random and strange thunderstorms today, but right now we got a lot of humidity and it's nice and hot. Sitting out here, get to chit chat with you for the evening.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I miss the North Carolina weather. I did live in North Carolina for a few years, and I'm sitting up here in the mid-Atlantic, and it is cold, it is windy, it is rainy. We're in a 10-day pattern of rain and wind with gusts into the mid-20s. So I miss I miss it. I miss North Carolina right now. And hey, I want everyone to know that you're on here today. We're going to talk about your specific area that you're a guide out of. We're going to talk about your fishery and really want people to get to know you. I want to start off this way. You are not only a captain that is out of North Carolina, but you are also a Salt Strong Insider member as well. What are you thinking about the club? How do you like it in there?
So, we've had some conversations quite a bit with some of the guides here within the Salt Strong community kind of thing. And when it started off, a bunch of people kind of jumped on just to kind of see what it was about or whatever. Me personally, as a guide that tries to share information without giving exact details and spots, it's been pretty good. Just to be able to do that and hold it down and help people out in certain situations, whether they're looking to try to catch their first fish or their biggest fish or something like that, so that's kind of what I like about it.
Yeah, it's all about helping people catch more fish and have a better experience on the water. And, for the people listening, the way that we kind of got linked up is I've been watching your posts in the community over time. And as I mentioned, I used to live in North Carolina. I love North Carolina fishing. And I kind of, I would look at your reports and it would kind of give me a good feeling about, even though I'm not there fishing right now, a little bit of memories of what I used to have so close to me, and now it's so far away. So I really appreciate going in there and seeing your reports, and I'm glad you're on here today. So let's start off. You want to give people just a high level overview of what Gunny B Outdoors is, because it's more than just fishing.
Yeah, so I do a lot more than just fishing. So Gunny B Outdoors as a whole, when this business started up, probably 2019, 2020, very well a few years before me getting out of the military, we kind of looked at it and was like, hey, this is what I'm going to pursue. And my wife came up with the business name of Gunny B Outdoors. So she was like, hey, there's a Gonna Be Outdoors, or you can use Gunny B Outdoors and tie it back to your military career. And me, hard-headed person as I am, I was like, look, man, I don't want nothing to do with that. Like, I want to be done with the military and so forth. She goes, look, own the great things you've done and accomplished, run with it. And so now it's to the point where I guarantee you 95% of the people here in Eastern North Carolina, if you walk in and say Captain Brad, nobody knows who you're talking about. It's all, hey, Gunny B or Gunny or something like that, so that's kind of where Gunny B came from. But I do run inshore, nearshore, offshore, duck hunting trips, bow fishing, flounder gigging, if it's even possible in North Carolina to do anymore, which is rare.
Right.
So, I bring an array of fishing and outdoor isms to my world.
Well, I have to tell you, I think your wife was right with the name, and I think you should own it and be proud of everything that you've done. I love the name. So I had to check 3 times. I'm like, what's his name again? because I know it by Gunny B, and it's and by the way, love your website too.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Like I do all that myself too. So like I control all of that. Nobody does anything. It's on me. So
I think it's great. I was looking at it and I'm thinking I might need to get in touch with you actually for a duck hunt at some time. So maybe we'll talk again down the line, because I have not done that, and that would be interesting to me.
man, I will tell you, I get so many repeat customers and they show up and it's like, man, we're just here for the breakfast. That hot breakfast on a cold morning on a boat with a North Carolina sunrise coming over to Pamlico Sound. You can't beat it.
No, that's okay. So we'll talk. I may have to make the trip down. Like I said, I have not gone duck hunting. However, it's on my list of things that I definitely want to do, and to tie it back to North Carolina for me would be really cool. I would absolutely love that. But we're not here to talk necessarily about hunting, but we are here to talk a little bit about North Carolina fishing and the type of fishing that you do. And as you said, you do it all the way down to gigging. If, as you mentioned, North Carolina state government can get everything under control and get things straightened out the right way. But that's a topic for another day.
That could be a podcast all in its own, right?
It could, and I have a lot to say about it. And I'm not happy with the things that I see coming out of that area and how it's run. But as you said, that's an entirely different podcast, and it's probably a 3-hour podcast if we want to even scratch the surface on it. But let's talk about the area that you do sail out of. So you sail off of, you launch at various boat ramps. What's the range of areas that you'll typically launch from at any given time throughout the seasons?
Yeah, so kind of depending on what time of year it is, it can either be Jacksonville, North Carolina, Swansboro, North Carolina, or New Bern, North Carolina. And it does stray from New Bern a little bit, depending on, especially in the fall with our trout run, that can extend all the way up to Pamlico and Belhaven, North Carolina, doing an array of different things, just trying to get on bigger fish and feeling where I'm going to be that best bite is at that given time for my clients.
All right. So you've got the wide range of areas to go, and you're going based on the fishing conditions and what the client's looking for, right?
Yeah, fishing conditions, and also especially that fall to winter bite. Summer we get a lot of typically southwest winds. So, we can tuck and hide in places in Jacksonville or Swansboro or New Bern. But then once you get in that wintertime pattern, when we start getting a lot of northeasters or north winds, trying to find places where you can hide. So then it's an array of boat ramps all over the eastern North Carolina, so to say, to be able to get and hide, tuck into places, get out of the wind, keep people comfortable, but also try to catch good fish.
That's really cool. And what I really like about that, and what it really speaks to for you as a guide, is you're not a one inlet guy. You're not fishing the same spots every day, running client A through all the same spots, today, and then the same spots tomorrow and the same spots the next day. Now, you might do that for a period of time if they're productive, but you've got a really wide range of areas that you're familiar with and you make your business on.
Yeah. Definitely, especially summertime red fishing, our redfish spread out quite a bit as the summer goes on, where we'll still have schools of fish, but we'll have more pods of fish kind of located. And by pods of fish, I'm meaning anywhere from 5 to, we're still seeing schools of 300 fish a day right now in certain areas. And if you're not exactly on where that school of fish wants to be at for that day, it's going to be a struggle to catch them. So you kind of got to move around and find them to get them to bite again, and then you got a north or wind shift change. And when that wind shift changes, that school is going to move or just shut off. So you got to pick back up and know where another school of fish should be feeding on that kind of wind set.
Yeah. And that's got to be, and look, when you're back in Pamlico Sound, as an example, it's all wind driven.
Man, we are. Especially fishing on the more on the new side for me. It's man, any given wind shift will change anything.
Yeah, I noticed that when I was out on my kayak, and the first time I went out into the sound fishing, because I did a lot of surf, and I brought my kayak down a few years ago, and I said, all right, I'm just going to go back here, and I'm gonna hunt for reds. It's middle of the summer, and I head out there, and I'm like, it's low tide. And then it was high tide. And I'm like, this is the same tide. And it was because the wind direction, like almost no water moved. It was probably a 3-inch difference where I was. I mean, you're 40 miles from an inlet. And it occurred to me right then, although it never did in the past, this is all wind driven. And I really picked the wrong day to be coming out here because I totally launched in the wrong spot and I just didn't have the areas to go to. But so let's talk about that right now. So look, we don't have to say it's Pamlico Sound. We don't have to say Avon. We don't have to say Nag's Head. We don't have to say it's Jacksonville, whatever area. Let's talk general terms right now. So we're into, as we're recording this, the last week of June. So what are you looking for right now for the top species that you're going to target if you're going out on your own with family and friends? You're not bringing a charter. It's just, hey, fun day of fishing. What are you doing right now at this time of the year?
So honestly, if I'm going to go out on a fun day of fishing, I'm going to start scouting and looking at new areas. And new areas might be areas I've fished plenty before, but I want to see what it's doing on those wind given days, whether that be our north, south, northwest, southeast that we've had for the last 2 days to we're fixing to switch to a southwest wind and just try to figure out what those fish are doing on a certain wind direction. And a lot of that has to do with when you run down, especially like the Neuse River, you can see those current rips and breaks as you run down to the river. But a lot of it, really, when you do that too, goes back to structure-oriented stuff and bait. If you don't have structure and you don't have bait in an area, you're really not going to have fish in that area unless you look out and they're just swimming through to get to that area. Honestly, we caught this past week, we caught a lot of fish that had a lot of sea lice in them. So that lets me know those fish are still coming in fresh off the ocean. So they're in a lot of transition mode, so those fish still hadn't settled down yet.
Right.
And they probably still won't settle down until August, September, and they'll stay in those certain areas constantly. Not saying you won't catch fish in those areas every day, but you're going to have a lot of transient fish moving in and out.
Yeah, and that's a really, really tough way to fish. So as a mid-Atlantic guy, I'll just say striped bass. The fall run. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's the fall run. Let's get out there and get on these 50-pounders." Okay, but just because they were there yesterday doesn't mean they're going to be there today. They could be 30 miles away. They're only there for about 10 minutes as they pass through the area. It's really tough, and the way that you know that you're getting those transient fish, as you mentioned, is it's the sea lice. So that's the first thing everybody does. And as soon as they pull in the first, they check it for lice. And if it has sea lice on it, you're like, okay, I'm in the transition area. I'm not necessarily where they're holding right now. And then you're moving. And the one good thing is you may as well troll between spots because you're always going to have the shot at them when they're moving through. But that can make for a really grind of a day when all you're doing is picking them off between point A and B. Point A, the point that they come in the inlet, and point B where they're actually heading, and you're catching them, somewhere in between there. But there's a lot of luck in that. And for me, that makes it a difficult day. I like to know where they are. I like to be able to target an area knowing that they're most likely there. And it seems like there's a lot of luck, at least for me, with the striped bass. But it sounds like I'm sure you're a little bit more dialed in on your areas than I am, but
man, I will tell you, I would rather be lucky on any given charter to weigh the fish out, to get out there and struggle all day, to have a bite for the last 30 minutes and it's like, oh, well, you saved the best spot for last kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And honestly, that happens with a lot of trips. And it's not that we're saving the best spot for last. If that happens, like me personally, I'm taking it personal as like, all right, what are these fish doing? Where should they be? How are they moving for today? What has changed from yesterday to today? How can we relocate them? What are they gonna eat? Are we back on a 3-inch bait? Or are we back on a 4-inch bait? Topwater's been non-existent for me for the majority of the year, where I've got other guys that's killing them on topwater.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of things back and forth. Every day, every day is different with it.
Yeah. And it's a big process of elimination sometimes, trying to figure that out, and which is why I really love resident fish. Give me a choice right now between fishing migration striped bass and resident striped bass. I will tell you, I will fish the migration bass because they're bigger and you have the shot at the trophy. But I really enjoy targeting the resident striped bass because it's more predictable and there's less luck in it. But as you said, I'll take a lucky shot in there and luck out in a spot and be happy with it at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's always better to be lucky than good, but it's also good to be good and have a little bit of luck mixed in too. So.
Yeah, I think the luck. Look, fishing does have a bunch of luck in it. I was talking to a guy. He said, look, if you're on a boat and there's 6 of you guys and let's say you're just vertical jigging, and the guy next to you is using everything the same as you, and he hooks into a 12-pound fluke. So he's pulling up a 12-pound flounder, and you're just getting 17, 18 inches. He's like, you can be sure there's a lot of luck in that. It's just the luck that he happened to grab that guy's, and I said, well, I don't think it's all luck. He's like, no, but there is a portion of that is always going to be luck. And you can be sitting next to a world-class angler and that can happen. But as you said, if you have the knowledge and you have the understanding of the fishery, that also makes luck. It may seem like luck, but you were there for a reason. Yeah, you may have had to go through 4 or 5 spots to get to that point, but you had that 5th spot or that 6th spot loaded up, whereas you constantly whittled down on the different factors that were influencing where the fish were. So that's kind of the way I look at it. And that's one of the reasons that I really appreciate the work that the captains such as yourself that are really successful, the work that you put in and the knowledge that you have. It's just, that's the difference between a fun day and a great day, or a bad day and a good day. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I'll tell you a little story. We had a trip last week. I don't get many trips that have 6 people on my boat, especially on the inshore side of the game. But we had one last week where I had 6 people, and it was a graduation trip for a high school kid. And we went through a pot of fish. We could literally watch them pushing bait and everything around the boat, right? Yeah. So we're seeing fish, and I'm telling them, cast, 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 cast. And the fish just would not hit anything. It's like, all right, dadgummit, man, I can't believe these fish ain't hitting. So we moved to another spot. Same thing happens again. And it's like, all right, the wind did change a little bit, so let's go to the other side of the river. We went to the other side of the river, the first line out. Now, I will say I was using cut bait on this trip, because you get 6 people on the boat, you just can't cast.
Right.
So we were using cut and live bait. So we get the first line out. As soon as I get the first line out, the rod has bent over. We're hooked up. So I throw a second line out, we're hooked up. Third line out, hooked up. We're on the school of fish. I was, all right, guys, we're on them. They want to eat on this side of the river. Next thing I know, we're sitting there for 30 minutes battling not only just fish, but we had a thunderstorm rolling in on top of us from out of nowhere. And the bite was on fire for an hour. We lost 14 fish on structure that day.
Oof.
Just because of the logs and break-offs and all that stuff, just how people are handling things. So, you get days like that, but when you still put 2-3 decent redfish in the boat on a trip, and then a dad walks up to me afterwards like, man, he goes, honestly, it was the best thing in my world to watch my son reel in his first redfish like that.
Yeah.
That's what gives me reassurance of, hey, I'm doing something right.
Yeah, it's wow. And I'll tell you what, breaking off 14 fish on structure, that makes for a memory, right? Yes, if you would have landed all 14, that's a memory too, but you're always going to remember the day that you got a bunch of really good fish and you lost even more.
Yeah.
And that's what it's about, creating those memories. So let's talk real quick. So let's say I'm heading down there with 3 buddies and we say we're going to charter with you. What can we expect as guys heading out on a charter with you from the second our shoes hit that dock or that boat ramp to when we get back off of the water at the end of the day? What's it like to be out with you on the water?
So kind of one of the things I'm big on is no matter what time we leave, whether that be 6 or 7, all time dependent, right? So no matter what, I'm going to give you a boat brief. So I'm going to lay out where everything is on the boat, whether that be GPS coordinates at all given times on the map, my radio, if we're in cell phone range, to know that, to my throw cushion, to the life jackets, first aid kit. Like, you're going to know where stuff is on my boat.
Yeah.
Even down to how to work my my jump seats in the back. So that's always my go-to right there off the bat. So we kind of leave an area. Sometimes we got to run to a no-wake zone. Sometimes I don't. If I got to run to a no-wake zone, we're going to get up on plane for a minute. We'll get to the no-wake zone, hang out for 2-3 minutes, just kind of BS back and forth. And then, hey, it's kind of time to go fishing. But what I want to know about my clients before we go fishing too is like, hey, are you right-handed or left-handed? Do you reel right-handed? Do you reel left-handed? Do I need to switch reels? Do I need to teach you anything in this situation? Because I like using a lot of artificial baits, especially when I have less numbers on the boat. So, it's always something to me more rewarding on a artificial bite than it is a live or dead bait.
Yeah. I think that's a popular opinion. A lot of people say, Salt Strong's all about the artificial baits. No, it's not true. You catch fish on whatever you can catch them on, but a lot of people just prefer the artificials. I know I do. I have nothing against, I'll throw out live and cut bait. Oh, if I need fish, like this weekend, I got a tournament on Saturday, and you can be sure I'm going to have some natural baits with me, but man, I just prefer the artificials.
Sometimes, especially if you're going into a tournament weekend, it's more of locating the fish.
Yeah.
And if you can locate those fish and stay on those fish with a live bait or a cut bait, sooner or later you can get those fish to bite off of a presentation of a bait.
Agreed.
So it can be very finicky, more on the artificial game. So that's just kind of my focus with things, because I do a lot of tournament fishing too up here, and I've had days where I've gone on a tournament, but been on a school of fish and it's like, man, why ain't they hitting?
Yeah.
And boom. I turn back around on the same 5 schools of fish and light them up all week on artificials. But tournament day, they just shut down for me.
That just seems to be the way it is. Yeah. I was out pre-fishing 2 days ago because that was the last weather window that we'd have before the tournament. And man, I was lighting them up. And I was so depressed when I got home that night. I was telling my wife, I said, it was just, we got blown off the water because the wind was just ridiculous. So we got blown off the water early, but I caught, 20 plus fish. And I was talking to her and she's like, well, that's great. You know where they are. And I'm like, and they won't bite on Saturday. I'm like, I'm thinking of going to a whole different area. I just know, because that's the way it always is. They're never there 3 or 4 days later when I head back, and they're not, well, I shouldn't say they're never there. they're still there, but they're not biting the way that they did 3 or 4 days earlier.
Yep.
So we'll see how it goes.
I'll tell you, I'll be on, like, I got a buddy, Mike Madness, and he runs Redfish Madness here in North Carolina, North and South Carolina, really starting back up. And he does a solo tournament. And man, I fished the second leg of that solo tournament because I knew where fish were at. I knew I had to battle some weather conditions. And I got out there, and I no kid you, I caught 32 redfish in a span all by myself. Slap wore out. The biggest fish I boated was the perfect tournament fish at 27 inches. And when I put him on my check-it stick with my white line, everything, and went to pick him up and move him, he flopped. And when he flopped, he hit my thigh and hit the gunnel and bounced in the water. I came back to the scales with a 25.25-inch redfish that weighed just over 6 pounds versus my 27 that was probably over 8 pounds to win the tournament.
I'm smiling. People can't see it, but I'm smiling because anyone who's been in a tournament knows that's always your biggest fear. But for me, I fish in a kayak primarily. So it's an even bigger fear because they only have to go, they slide 2 inches and they're already over the gunnel because it's below your knee. And I was out in this tournament that I'm fishing this week last year, and the one guy, and I tell people, and I show in videos that I do, don't do this if you're in a tournament. And I take the fish grips out of the mouth and to get the cleaner measure on the bump board. And invariably, they go over, this guy had what we thought would be a winning fish early in the day. And for some reason, he decided he was going to measure it. Well, there was no reason to measure it because you can only possess one in this over slot size for the day. And it was clearly big enough that he should never throw that back. That's his entry. He decided he's going to measure it. And that thing went, it was a fluke. It went flying out up in the air, over the thing, into the water. And I'm telling you right now, he almost dove in after it. I don't know what he was thinking. He didn't know what he was thinking, but the only good
reaction is what it is.
And everyone said, what in the world were you measuring it for? And he's like, I couldn't help it. I'm never doing that again. Now, he did get a nice fish later. He did win some money in the tournament, but the only good news for him is that he was actually, that would have been the 3rd or 4th place fish. So he wasn't going to win the big prize anyway. So that was a little bit of a consolation. But when you're in a boat, though, you never think you need fish grips to keep that thing from getting back out of the
boat. But see, too, like here in North Carolina, we're on an 18 to 27 inch fish, especially redfish tournament. So like, when I pinch his tail where it stops at 26 and it's that perfect, it's not touching the white line on the 27. I learned some lessons that day. Never pick the fish up. I will take him from my spot where I measure him, and he's going to go straight down the gunnel and stay inside the boat. Yeah. I'm not picking that fish up ever again.
Yeah. It's a hard lesson to learn, but it's a great story. You got a great story.
It was, man. And we got back and it was like, you didn't catch 32 fish. I was like, I guarantee you I caught 32 fish. I got a clicker on the boat now.
Hell yeah.
Because I started wanting to keep track. So,
I got to get one of those because I constantly try to do it. And the way I do it is I go back and I count in the videos that I take, because I record essentially 100% of the day because part of my job is creating videos. But I also fish for 8 to 10 hours a day. That's a lot to be out there for 8 to 10 hours and then watch 8 to 10 hours looking for all these fish. So I end up skipping a lot of them, but you have just one of those old school umpire clickers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, it's clicks. You reset it at the end of the day. Call it good.
All right. I'm going to have to pick one of those up. Definitely. All right. So we're coming up on the end here, but I don't want to go before we talk about something that's, recent, or near future for everyone that's going to be listening to this. So we're rolling into July. We're talking North Carolina. Let's talk inshore fishing. Is it reds that you're going to be targeting at that point, or are the trout your primary target at that time?
Man, I'm going to be honest. Once we get mid-July, I shift everything to bull drum fishing.
Okay.
Almost everything. Unless I can run an offshore trip, I'm shifting to bull drum fishing.
Okay.
We get these fish that they're already here. They're in the river systems. They're already pushing up. We got so much salt water, so much bait. They're here. But they're just not congregated as they will be as the later July, August, September days will be. And that's where it gets fun. When you can go out and sight cast a 40 to 50 plus inch redfish, and I can literally, in North Carolina, I don't know what every other state does, but I can submit your citation paperwork there that day on the boat. To where you get a nice little certificate from the state of North Carolina for catching a great fish kind of thing. It is all catch and release, but I do use light. I say light-ish tackle. I'm using 7 foot medium heavy rods to a 3,000 to 4,000 class reel. Whether that be we're throwing popper plugs at them, popping corks or anything. I don't live bait these fish. I would rather sight cast these fish and work them and get them to hit on artificial bait. And the U hook up and hey, guess what? Now we're on and we get this fish in the boat. We take that measurement, put it in your arms, and it's like, oh my God, like I'm holding a 40-year-old fish right now.
Yeah.
And
wow.
That's what it's about right there.
All right. So when I'm back down in Outer Banks, I'm gonna have to look you up. I'm hoping to be down in September, October timeframe. So
and that late August through the whole month of September, unless we get some stupid hurricanes, man, that is awesome.
Oh, that's great. All right. So everyone fishing North Carolina, that's what you have to look forward to coming up this month after this comes out. Before we go, though, Captain, why don't you share all the ways that people can get in touch with you if they'd like to reach out to you to about anything, book charter, ask any questions? How would they get in touch with you?
So I'm an open book. So if you want to reach out on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, or whatever, you can Google anything Gunny B Outdoors. You're going to find me. I have that whole thing locked down, so it's all me. Run my own website. Everything's there. So Gunny B Outdoors, either Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, it's there. So even
awesome.
on Salt Strong. So
yeah, I was going to mention, or you can, if you're an insider member, just go into the community and you'll see Captain Brad in there. Just look for Brad Smith posting reports out of North Carolina, and you'll be able to follow what he's doing on the water. And you can also reach out directly through the community. Might make it a little easier for you. And of course, we'll be patient for your response because you'll be out on the water most days. And
most days, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is my full-time gig now, so I'm doing it. I mean, I'm on the water 200 plus days a year. So, yep, hanging out, doing things.
That's awesome. That's great. Well, hopefully the weather in July is what you need for these bull reds to pull together and get moving and get active. I want to thank you for coming on. This is great. I love talking, fishing with people all around, and I love North Carolina, which is one of the reasons that I wanted you to be on so soon. Selfish reason. As the host, I was like, well, I want to talk North Carolina fishing. So
my pleasure, Rich, man. And I'm sure, like, what are we at? 34 minutes, man. We can make this hour, 2 hour kind of conversation back and forth. So
yeah, we absolutely could, but we're not going to. I made a promise that we would not go much beyond the 30 minutes. So thanks again for coming on. Everybody, thanks for tuning in to listen. We're going to be back again next week with another guide. And we're just going to keep going through the entire Eastern Coast over the next several weeks, talking to captains all across the area, talking to all different species. So I'm really looking forward to those. Thanks again, everyone. We'll catch you in the next one.
'Cause fishing, it's